Pastor Chira Show. I'm Pastor Chira, and today we launch. We launch into new territory. We launch into new mindset. We launch into new relationships. Are you ready to launch out? Come on and launch out with me as we go into this conversation on today. Today, we are going back. Yes, we are going back to the Pastors and Leaders Summit 2023 when Overseer Bryant K. Knight brought in dynamic preachers and bishops and leaders to talk about different aspects of being a pastor and being a leader in today's time. And one of those that he brought in was a dynamic, and I mean dynamic, bishop from Ontario, Canada. Yes, Canada. He came all the way down to sit down and speak with us on vision and the virtual church. And he came in and he sat down and he talked with me about what his workshop was all about in the virtual church and how we bring the virtual church in to church today. And that is none other than Bishop Carlton Facey. And I want you to hear what he had to say in regards to the virtual church and how it pertains to the physical church today. Take a listen.
The church has changed and it will change. And let me say it this way. The will change is that most persons weren't ready for what God had ready for them. Mm-hmm. That's one thing. And when you think of virtual church and in-person church, mm-hmm. what we have noticed is that we were doing virtual church long before the pandemic.
Right.
But it was not at the level that we thought it would have, evolved to.
Right.
But what we see is that during the pandemic, for us as church to survive, most churches did not have cameras, mm-hmm. right? Right? They did not have the tools, mm-hmm. which I think was a no, because the world was already doing what we weren't.
Right.
So what we did was that we did not prepare ourselves properly. Mm-hmm. And we're still trying to do that.
It's still in the process.
Yeah, because mm-hmm. we always wait until something is outdated, then we become a part of that movement.
Right.
While we are the greatest institution that God has ever placed on the earth. So why wouldn't you try to be a part of the movement while it's going on, mm-hmm. and then you wait until it's obsolete?
Or get ahead of the movement.
Well, we can, but as I always say that we struggle with this one thing: we never have the funds, right? and no, I'm just going to be honest.
Yeah.
But we can if we begin to utilize all the resources that the Lord has given to us. So I've seen the change. The mm-hmm. church has changed. Mm-hmm. I share this with you. My daughter, my youngest daughter, I would say to her, "I didn't see you in church today," mm-hmm. and she'll say, "Dad, I was in church." Mm-hmm. And I said, "But I didn't see you in church."
Right.
Because you always at a spot. And she says, "Don't you have a virtual church?" And I said, "Yes." So she said, "I was at the virtual church." So,
but I want to see you in your spot.
Right. But what I had to do was to accept that that's a part of what we're doing.
Right.
So I do now have virtual members.
Right. How did you build that? Or did you, because you talked about your son transitioning into being...
yeah, well, mm-hmm. that is part of what... Okay, I'm not tech savvy. I'm going to be honest. But my group that I have, mm-hmm. they deals with that. Mm-hmm. My son came in as, he's the youth pastor before he transitioned into the other section.
Okay.
But he wanted to make sure that we were streaming. Mm-hmm. So we had Facebook Live kind of church and YouTube mm-hmm. before the pandemic. Mm-hmm. So we didn't really have to go looking for cameras or anything.
Right.
All we did, and we had a phone line, we had a prayer line where we had a conference line. Mm-hmm. Our conference line also had a like a camera that you could use, like Zoom.
Okay.
So we were well trained how to use those things long before anything happened. So when that happened, we could just transition to Zoom because it was more affordable to use, but we were ready to go, and we were, we did that. So I think it was beneficial to us to do that with the young people and the transformation of the church in the sense of technology-wise.
Right.
They had all of that.
They did it
So
all.
I had to help. But if it was for me, I think I would still be behind.
And it's funny that you say that because I had to transition into the senior pastor seat for my father. My father has since retired. Not really, because we still have him doing a lot of stuff. But he's since taken the back seat.
Emeritus.
Yes. And because he was saying the same things, and he says it even today. He's like, if it was me, we would be nowhere near any of this stuff.
Yes.
And so I appreciate your foresight even in seeing that, but more importantly, saying that and saying, I need the help. And what do we do with those leaders, those pastors? Yikes, who won't admit to needing help? How do we transition them into saying, yes, I need the help with the evangelism. Yes, I need the help with the Christian education. Yes, I need the help with the training. Yes, I need the help with the technology. Yes, because a lot of them, they're like, the old way is the best way because it's what got me here. So how do we talk to you and the seniors and say, we're here to help and it be received? Does that make sense?
I mean, the question, it make a lot of sense because I am presently presiding, I would say, the organization that we founded in 2019.
Okay.
Allow me to really be around a number of pastors, right? And what I find out is that the older pastors are conformed to their ways. And you will get a rebuke if you try to say, this is not working.
Yes.
But this is what I talked about earlier. Talk about the optimism versus delusion.
Yes.
And I think that they have lived a lie because their expectation is not going to happen. And they are saying, okay, we're waiting on the Lord. I understand you're waiting on the Lord.
Right.
But do you realize that your church is declining in numbers? Nobody is coming. So what is this saying? And they're saying little is much, yes, when God is in it. And they still stay there.
Right.
And I think that it's something that is hard to really break when persons are not willing to embrace change. And I just believe that the church is going to diminish.
Like you were talking about the life cycle.
The life cycle of the church. If you look at what I shared with the church, it starts with a vision.
Right.
Right? And if you look at from vision attracts what? People. Right? And you build relationship.
Right.
And then relationship will cause you to have ministry.
Right.
Right? And so what happened then? And ministry gives you a structure. Right? And so you have all of those things, right? And then that is when you get to your plateau. And you're at this high point of ministry where you're saying, okay, everything is good. So you don't do anything. We dance and we happy and the tithes are coming and everything is coming. We're paying the bills and my salary is there and I'm excited about it. But guess what happened? Things start to decline because the vision is no longer
Relevant.
Okay, and because we are fulfilled. And so we need to do a vision cast again to look at where we are as with a vision, make sure that we look at where God wants us to go. Because remember, if you get to your plateau and you don't, what we should be doing then is start planting churches, right?
Right.
Because and the people, here's the big part. You're a gift that I've spent. Okay, you've spent 10 years with me, 20,
Right.
and you sound like me. You do everything I do now because guess what? You emulate me, but I'm still afraid to send you out to the next location. And you have to wait until I die, and maybe I never die, for you to get an opportunity to do the thing.
Right.
No. So here's a big problem. We need to start looking at succession, and I didn't get a chance to deal with that.
Right.
Because I didn't have time.
Right.
But succession is the key. Success without a succession is no success at all.
No success.
So what do you do when you are getting older and you could sit down and look at your spiritual sons, biological or daughters, continue on while you can give them instructions?
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So we have not done well with succession, because most churches fall apart when the pastor passes.
Right. Is this because of what we have been taught and what has been indoctrinated into us? Because even in building, so let's go natural. You get older, you become an adult, you get married, you have children, you raise your children. We are taught to raise our children to do and be better than us, right? Why is that not reflected in the church? Because if that's what that's what we teach in the church, but we don't reflect it in the church. But that's what isn't that what we have been taught and told in our homes and family? But in the church, it's, I gotta hold on to this, I gotta stay in this, this is mine, it's not yours, because it's God's church, it's not your church. This is mine. And why do we say one thing and teach something else?
What I've heard from many leaders and our fathers is persons are not ready yet, right? I hear that, and that's the best I can say. And I talked to them and said, what happened? And they said they're not ready yet. They still need more training, or they just don't have the heart to pastor, or they just don't, I don't think they'll do a good job. And they don't realize that if you put, okay, my son, I have sons, and in terms of, but there are two young men that I'm working with now, that I'm giving an opportunity for the people to hear their voices regularly. Why? Because they, in my heart, they are the future leaders of the church. My sheep hear my voice and know not another. If the people get used to your voices, so I can sense when they're preaching, I sense the people respond. I realize that out of the two, there's one that the people are a little bit more for, and that doesn't mean that's how the direction I'd go, but I'm starting to look at, and I'm also doing an assessment to see how the people feel when I'm not there. So every now and again I'll hear somebody say, Bishop, aren't you going to preach this week? Are you going to preach next week? And I'm saying, okay, I get an understanding now that they are really, they want to hear me, but
they
that
need your
doesn't
voice.
mean that I can't step away. Right, if I have to, and there's a time when you're going to have to make that transition, but you do it gradually, until you phased yourself right on. But I think, like some of the great leaders that we know today, they've turned over their church or their churches to their children or daughter or son, but they're still there.
They're still there, yeah.
Right, that's what is good. But I'm still there, so and that's happening, right? So I'm just hoping that, you know, there's a shift in paradigm. And things are going to happen far different. The church has changed. There's no way we would survive if we continue to do the things we used to do. Now, the method has changed.
Yes. The method has changed, yes.
Right? The methodology. God's word is still his word. What I'm concerned about is, are you following the scriptures? Are you doing it God's way?
Right. I told you, he dropped some nuggets that are worth picking up. But we are going to go to a commercial break. And on the other side, we're going to hear more from Bishop Carlton Facey. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
What do you do when you know the Lord is real, but the weight of your trials overwhelms you? What do you do when you're trying to hold on to hope, but doubt keeps creeping in? You cry out to the Lord like the man in the Gospel of Mark chapter 9. Lord, I believe. Help my unbelief.
I know that I should be focused on you instead of all that I'm going through. I know my mind should be at ease, but these trials keep robbing me of peace.
We're here, we're back, and we're going into the conversation with Bishop Carlton Facey as he continues to tell us about the virtual church. But I want you to take a listen. I want you to hear what he's saying about a cult. What's that about? A cult from the bishop? Take a listen.
That is what I'm concerned about.
Okay.
I'm not concerned about the lights. It used to be a problem.
Right. You done grew into the lights.
I'm grown. No, the lights are fine with me.
Okay.
And the blings and the things that you do, you're changing the pulpit is all right. Because I know those things are I know those things are a problem. But
are they really though?
Was a problem.
Don't we still need an altar?
No, we still got it.
I'm a little old school.
Okay. The one I had, it was this big, right?
Okay, you're right.
So I could put 5 laptops. Now they bring it down to this size.
Okay, it's still one.
But you know what? To be honest with you, that doesn't bother me no more. As I said, it was hard for me to say, go ahead, change it. Okay, I'm going to tell you, they put this thing black at the back, and at one stage they said, "Why don't you paint the church black?" I said, "No. That one we're not going to do."
right.
But so I'm just saying, there's a lot of things, right? Now we don't go. My son, I'm learning not to wear a tie. I understand that. For years, I'd wake up and put a tie. Right. But now I'm learning. You don't have to wear a tie. Right. I mean, I still have my Sundays where I still dress clerical. Right. My civic attire, I still do some things, and I still want that. Like for Easter, I told them in church, I said, Easter it's a sensitive time for me. Right. I don't want to lose that. Right. I said, that's the church. So I still try to do things that reflects, Christ's resurrection and his death and his burial. Some of the church's tradition, I don't want to lose. Christmas time, I think there are things we still have to do, our communion and all of those things that I think. But some of the things that I see people worry about, I don't think we should.
So, not necessarily, we need to keep the foundation of ministry. We need to keep the foundation of the church, not necessarily all of the traditions of the church. It's about the foundation.
We talk a lot about religiosity earlier.
Yeah.
And I think I said something, I know a lot of people missed it, but I said when I was a cult. And I said that because when I look at the practices that I was a part of, it was very occultish. And it had nothing to do with salvation. It had nothing to do with spiritual growth and maturity. All it had to do with traditions of men. Right. We did not see any growth. We did not see people maturing to becoming great for God. They were just operating out of their emotions. Right. We can see today in the churches, people are very emotional, and that's why they dance and do the things they do. But they're not sound doctrinally. Right? And so I believe that now where I am, I cannot be a part of that. Yeah. I want to be a part of something that the legacy of the kingdom is really maintained. We must make sure that the next generation that is going to take over know God, not about him. Know him. They don't connect to a church, but they're connected to God. That is my concern. Yes. And that's why I'm no longer part of the cult.
A lot of us have been part of the cult.
I don't know. Most people don't want to say it, but I'm not afraid. People that ask me, Bishop, I said, yeah, they were cults. You know what we did once when we were younger? I was a part of that. Tell you what. People would come to church and they would say they got to get a hat. And they'd put a hat on their head. No, they could not be in the church without a hat on. You can have that pants on.
Right.
You couldn't. You couldn't. No, you couldn't have that hairstyle.
Nope.
Right? My wife would not. She could not put nothing in her hair. It had to stay the same way. So I don't think you see the beauty of women today because they were able now to put themselves together.
Right.
You know, and all of those things. I mean, we are starting to realize that a lot of the things we did was never of God.
It wasn't.
Can I say it right?
Yes.
A lot of things we call sin, the Bible didn't say it was sin. Man made it sin. So what do? We got to change.
We have to change.
And that's what I've done.
And so it's not just post-pandemic church. It's the church has to evolve as a whole, is what I hear you saying.
That's correct. But the pandemic has done, just put a cap. All right, let me tell you one of the things I was teaching. I do have a teaching that I do. Where we were supposed to be 2025.
Right.
The world is present. So we would have gotten there without the pandemic, 2025. But it has speed up. So we're there. So if the church want to be consistent in what we do or be a part of this movement, we have to go and get involved in every area of technology that we are supposed to. We must invest now in the technological world. We must get trained in areas that we were never trained before, so that we understand how social media work. We understand the benefits of it. We can't just look at it and say it's no good. We used to curse that church and say, people, now we're glad that people. I have Bible studies with people in Bahamas, America, Jamaica, Guyana, other parts. I've never had that before. But through the pandemic, people came on and they've never gone. Now I have what we call virtual members that I am starting to build cell groups with from the virtual church that they're responsible for a team in their region.
So I'm going to ask you this last question, because you made a statement about going into an empty church. And if you walked into a church that was empty, like it didn't have anybody there, that you would say, just shut it down. However, I would challenge to say, if there's no one in the seats there, but they are present virtually, does that still say a shutdown, or does that say a shift?
I think I was based on just over a period of time. We have noticed that you're having a church and there's no one, that people just go with their family. I've seen where pastors have had ministries and it's 3 kids, pastor and his wife, and they've been in that church for 3 years, 4 years, and you'd say to them, they'd invite you, and you'd go and you're asking where are the people, and they'll say they are gone, and you know, it's starting to talk to them, you find out that's ambition, that you're afraid to say, you know, the church is closed. I personally would say close it and go and serve someone and be a great help to somebody, because you're an asset to the kingdom. It means that something, maybe you weren't called for this. As Archbishop Ralph said, that he doesn't believe that all are pastors. I didn't want to attach to say that, but I believe it's true. That some of us are just ambitious, and I don't think we were called to that, right? And we can prove that, right? I was first an evangelist before I pastored. I mean, I've been an international evangelist. I was doing good, right? And sometimes I still I still believe I'm an evangelist.
Absolutely.
And I've never stopped being an evangelist, even though I've gotten to this office of a bishop. But as I said, the church is empty. I don't think I would sit down in a delusion for 5 years with nobody in the church. Pastor, no, virtual church. I believe I have been in a empty church, because for a year, 5 of us have been preaching from the church to the chairs, but I know that was my mind condition. Because I know I was preaching to thousands of persons by way of virtual church. It's different, yes, but if we are, I believe that we are going to finally don't need a building. And this is my final word. I believe the time is going to come, remember, that we're not going to need a building. We are going to see the evolving of virtual church, but we're going to come together 3 or 4 times a year for massive services and massive baptism. But we are going to get away because people are definitely drifting away from in-person church.
I agree.
You agree?
I agree.
Well, we agree. Well, I thank you.
I thank you. I thank you for taking this time to come and sit down and just have this brief discussion with me, because they got it inside, but I knew there was more. It was a little bit more.
There's still more, but tell you
Yes.
what we'll do. We'll leave all of it for another time.
Yes.
So that I can get something. So what I did, I emptied me.
Yes.
So I can receive what's there for me.
And that's
so
it.
I really do appreciate your time.
I
Thank you
appreciate
so
your
much.
time. Thank
and
you so much.
And you smiled all through the way. So I think you just made everything good. All right.
What I tell you, this conversation was packed. It was packed with information about vision. It was packed with information about vision casting. It was packed with information about the virtual church. It was packed with information about succession and what that means and what that looks like. And I am impacted by all that Bishop Facey gave to us, that he said this was a message that we can carry with us, not just today, but as we move forward. He gave us information that will carry us to where we need to continue to go, not just for the physical church, but for the virtual church, not just for being a part of ministry, but being the ministry and where we're going in that. So I pray that you received everything that God had for you out of this conversation, and that it helps you to continue to be the visionary for the virtual church that God has created you to be. You want to be at the 2024 Pastors and Leaders Summit. Pay attention, stay tuned, because we're going to start ramping up, getting ready for 2024. So come on, be ready to come to the Pastors and Leaders Summit 2024 here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm Pastor Chira. This is the Pastor Chira Show, and I'll see you next week. God bless.